we want to save time. There would be no time for consecutive translation. I also want to say a few words about myself. My name is Simona Marinescu. I'm the economist of the United Nations in Iraq, within the UNDP team in Baghdad. I have been here for the last 8 years, so whatever has been presented before or I'm presenting here, I witnessed personally in the last 8 years of my activity in Iraq. My work has started in 2003 in November. So in 2012, I gained the seniority to make my own comments on the situation in Iraq. First of all, Excellencies, the organizers of the Iraq Institute for Economic Reforms events, distinguished guests, distinguished professor of Stansilia University, it is very late for me to present all I wanted to present. However, we leave the presentation in both English and Arabic for you to go through it. You listen today here about what Millennium Development Goals are, how they have come to represent the most important development tool that the United Nations is using across the world and that the governments consider in the policies they develop. I want to mention a few things here. The positive news about this country, it has been mentioned before, is that this is a mid-income country. It's a country that does generate financial resources. It is a country that has had, over the last years, significant growth rate. You do have growth. The translation of growth into well-being, the translation of growth into prosperity, is a measurement indicator of the governments in every country on earth. If the governments deliver or they do not deliver their social contracts, we can see and measure through the human development indicators, through the achievement, the completion of Millennium Development Goals as they have been set out by the United Nations. In this regard, we have witnessed in Iraq over the last years a certain improvement. There are indicators that have changed to the better. There is also true that there are areas in which the progress has been slow, and our role is to flag, whenever we meet with the government, where the weaknesses in development of this country are. You've heard from Stansilia University a presentation of indicators that has come from 2007, the Iraq household survey that was conducted by the World Bank. What we present to you today is the set of indicators, almost similar indicators, of 2011. And I want to mention here that together with the Center of Statistics and together with NGOs operating in Iraq, the United Nations, through the Iraq Knowledge Network, has conducted in 2011 a survey across the country. 29,000 households have been covered. We collected information from the level of districts. We went down to the lowest level of the administrative division of the country. Over 96% of the people interviewed have answered the question. This is why we consider the results of this survey extremely relevant for the country, and I would like to go with you through a few of the slides to make a few comments on where we believe things have not improved over the last years. As you can see, I'm suggesting going back to the first slide, please. The second one. So this presents how the survey has been conducted. Go ahead, the next one. With objectives and with the response, with the questionnaire, staff, field visits. This is all the description of what we've conducted. The indicators as covered, because we've had two sets of indicators. We went initially through the household demographics and essential services, and then we went to governance and food security. And on food security, there is some new information than the one that was presented. I want to go to labor, first of all, and to say a few things here. The bad news in this country is that the employment participation rate of people, the labor force, how many from the age group 15 to 64 who are demographically active are actually seeking jobs or holding jobs. And in this regard, we've had a drop of the indicator. We speak today about 44% of the demographically active population is actually seeking jobs, which means only 7.9 million. You have 31 million people for whom only 7.9 are working or ready to work, which is not a good news. And what I want to mention here, you could see that the drop is in the labor employment for women, which means that, so from 20% in 2003, today only 13% of women are actually seeking jobs or working. Of course, for women in this country, there will always be a choice whether they want to work or they do not want to work. What we sense, though, through the questions, is that most of the women consider that jobs outside the state are not safe, are not secure, from many points of view, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. So 72% of male in this age group are job holders or seeking jobs, and the government provides 40% of the jobs in this country, which is not good news either. And we also see a trend of increasing the jobs that the state is offering. Every single year, for instance, in 2012, over 2.7 million people work with the government. We have another 700,000 people working with state-owned enterprises, also paid by the state. So the increase of labor in the private sector is quite slow, and normally part-time jobs. And the most important thing is that these are vulnerable jobs, because people do not have employment contracts, people do not pay, are not enrolled in Social Security, so the moment they lose the job, they have no other right. So going back to the slide, you can see the areas in which women are more present. Women work primarily in agriculture, in the rural area, in services, public administration. The rest is practically male-dominated. Next slide. A few more slides, and then I'm sorry, I need to rush. What I want to mention here is that the unemployment rate has declined. We speak today about 11%. I want you to know that it has come from 28% unemployment in 2003, so that's a quite significant improve. The problem we have is with the unemployment of youth, and this is where the state needs to do something. And I will mention why. First of all, this is the only resource that is continuously growing, youth. You will have more and more young generations, and you will have more and more young generations across the world. The other element that is essential is that youth is more productive when it comes to high technologies. The most performing the technology, the most sophisticated computers and machines are actually calling for younger labor force who have studied closer to the moment this technology has been developed. So the productivity of youth, not across the sectors, but against high technologies, is much higher than the productivity of older generations who need a time to adjust their studies to the new technologies. So that's a pure indicator, pure observation across the world. And what is interesting is that you have unemployed from higher education graduates, which means that you invest in people, but they don't get to work. They don't get to return to the economy what they've studied and that what they've received as investment. You need to think about that. An education system is performing not if it's producing graduates, but if it's producing employed people. This is how the unemployment looks like. It's It's nothing special for you to see the areas with the highest unemployment. Why so high? You need to give more power to your local services, to the governorates, to let them be more flexible in offering jobs, in engaging youth. A centralized policy for unemployment makes sense in terms of policy, but in terms of action, it should be decentralized. Essential services, access to electricity, not good news. Some improvement, not much. The problem is that even if you're giving more and more electricity to people, the demand is growing. You have investors coming in, they need electricity. So to be able to cope with this increasing demand is something that you need. The government is working on a 20-year-old strategy, hopefully for energy. Hopefully that will be soon ready and reflected in your budget. In the red, you have how many households are using electricity from the station, from the power station. You can see Ninawa is not very well placed in terms of access to electricity. Najaf as well. I just want to mention that Basra has been very unhappy to see that they are mentioned with 19 hours per day electricity supply, because they believe that that's not reflecting the reality. We continue to collect data. This is not a one-time exercise. We continue to collect data to show the government where the delivery of services is. Drinking water, that's where we stand on drinking water. You can see that in the rural area, only 47% of the rural population have access to the public network, and a bit better in the urban area. The perception is the problem. Only 38% of the households actually are considering the quality of drinking water good. So that shows that the satisfaction of people with those services is also a problem. It's not only the coverage. This is the map, how things look like. You will have the possibility to get into the data from the side. Sanitation is not much improving, and we are a little bit concerned. We speak about only 30% of the households with access to public sanitation. And out of whom 9% of poor households. So that's a very, very worrying indicator. So that's the map. So for each indicator you have the data and then the coverage, and you can see where things are looking better, and where Muthana, for instance, is one of the governorates with the lowest access to public networks for sanitation. Health is also a major concern. It's about access to services, to medical services, and then, of course, the perception of quality of the services. I'm not saying much here to tell you that there is a lack of equipment or of doctors. The problem is how the government responds to that, how the government gives the possibility to doctors to actually have the satisfaction of working in the health system of this country, and to come up with alternative sources for funding, possibly a health insurance system. Very, very quickly, a few more words. Housing remains a major concern, and is about the access to housing, is about the quality of housing. You can see that apart from the fact that there is an absence of housing units, you also have a problem of crowded housing units, overcrowded, in which you have too many people living in the same housing unit and accessing poor support services for the housing provision. Solid waste collection. That you can see it's a major problem in the rural area. That affects the environment. The environment is one of the Millennium Development Goals indicators. And going to food, because there was and I'm sorry, Dr. Jafari had to go, because apart from the situation of incomes, we cannot measure incomes because people tend to not tell us the truth when we ask about income. We look at expenditure. How much they expend, how much they spend and how much they are transferring into food and non-food items. So that's the situation of the average expenditure per governorate, as you can see here. We have in Suleimania, obviously, a better capacity of the households to spend versus Dhaka, that seems to be the poorest in terms of what people can afford. That's the percentage of people in the lowest income group across the country. You can see that Muthana and Ninawa remain, and Dhaka as well, with the lowest spending capacity per household. Here is the composition of what people are spending for, and I want you to know that we measure the improvement in life looking at how much people pay for food. Now the spending for food has decreased to 34.5% out of 35 a few years ago, and out of 46 in 2004 when another study was conducted. That doesn't mean that people eat less. The eating behavior doesn't change that quickly. That means that they have better income, so what they spend for food as a share of total spending is much lower. And then expenditure patterns, you can see